Tonight, on this special episode of TBN, we explore the behind-the-scenes of this year's Martin Luther King Day celebration. From overviews of student and faculty planning to sit-down interviews with workshop leaders, TBN recaps everything and everyone that went into bringing this celebration to life. All this, next.
Good evening, and welcome to this very special episode of Tower Broadcast News. I'm your host, Matthias Jalen, and today we'll be showcasing the Masters School's celebration of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Students planned and hosted workshops in classrooms just like these in honor of Dr. King's legacy. Student involvement was a massive part in planning the day. Here's Xavier Wilson with the story.
Masters' MLK Day was a large success this year, in no small part thanks to the student planning efforts that went into it. Members of both the middle school and the upper school gathered in the Fonseca Center gym to watch student performances and listen to several different speeches relating to the day's theme. Dr. Roland Davis explained the importance of the day's theme, as well as the role that student planners had in coming up with it.
The theme for the day, Not Done, was the idea that came from a student during one of our committee meetings as we were brainstorming about what possible themes could be. And through the course of that conversation, a student threw out this idea of this work not being done. And without question, everybody sitting around the table said, absolutely, that's it. That's our theme for the year.
Students worked to plan the event ahead of time, create engaging workshop ideas, and refine those over time, create presentations for the morning, and oversee the day's schedule and programming. Davis further explained the importance of student leadership, adding on what they provided behind the scenes.
So Mr. Douglas had convened a committee of the MLK Day Planning Committee, and that was made up of students and faculty. And we didn't get as early a start as we had hoped to this year, but we still, I feel like, had plenty of time for student involvement. Students got to look at the schedule and offer input in terms of what the logistics would look like for the day. Students reviewed the workshops, the lists before they were approved, so they had a sense of what the workshop opportunities would be. So yeah, I think students did have a chance to weigh in and be directly involved in the planning and execution of the day.
Elijah Brooks, a junior and co-chair of SCHEME this year, spoke on his experience operating behind the scenes.
For me, what I did in MLK Day was I gave a welcome, short little welcome, 2 minutes at the start. But my role, to be honest, was more like an observer in seeing it. And to be honest, I really enjoyed MLK Day this year. I thought the speaker was very informative. Not only informative, it's just the way she connected technology and race was unheard. And I feel like she really brought her expertise to us that day. Also, the workshops, I was in 2 workshops actually. I was in Black and Beauty, and I was also in AAVA, African American Vernacular English. If I got this much out of it, and I'm myself a person of color, I can only imagine what other people got out of it. We are learning something new, something different today. That's very important.
Brooks further explained the process of creating a presentation for the morning.
The process for it was actually very nice. We met after school, and then we talked over what do we want the school to take away from our 2 minutes, even though it's very brief. What do we want the school to take away? And it was just once again the community norms, and also some of the little bits that we added in there, we're very welcome to have everybody today, but as a remembrance that today is not just a remembrance, but it's also a process. We're here to build, we're here to grow, here to cultivate a community that is better for not only just people of color or PWI, but for everybody.
Junior Gabriel Tamako spoke on his experience leading a workshop.
My workshop was about the oppression by government and also just general that transgender people face in the United States today. Well, I started off by telling the history of transgender people in the United States, multiple different, and also how African Americans have had a large impact on that community. I also then moved on to current day topics such as political persecution, laws made against them, and then I went into a question and answer type thing.
The workshop leaders chose their topics based on their expertise and the issues they felt were relevant to our world today, taking on Masters' mission to be a power for good in the world and contributing to the day's success. For TBN, this has been Xavier Ralston, the Master School.
There were many wonderful workshops hosted by both students and outside organizations for the MLK Day celebration. An organization that came to Masters and gave a workshop was the New York chapter of the Poor People's Campaign. TBN executive producer Carol K-Roz sat down for an exclusive interview with the representatives from the Poor People's Campaign to talk about why they come and give a workshop every year for MLK Day.
My name is Arelis Figueroa, and from the Poor People's Campaign, New York State. And the Poor People's Campaign is the relaunch of the campaign that Martin Luther King and the leader of the civil rights movement they were leading this campaign in 1968, and that's when Dr. King was killed, was assassinated, and the campaign was talking about uniting everyone, uniting the poor, saying that it was not just about civil rights, but human rights.
My name is Katrina Zaitza, and I'm with the Poor People's Campaign as well in New York. Dr. King talked about these interlocking injustices of militarism, racism, and poverty. And he saw how those were all interlocking to uphold systemic oppression in this country. And so when he moved from this fight for civil rights to human rights, he was organizing people across lines of division, including racial lines. So like white poor people and black poor people to come together and fight economic systemic injustice. So and then today we carry that on, and we're trying to organize to build power amongst the poor and dispossessed in order to transform society and to intervene and break up these interlocking injustices to transform society. So yeah, and we think the Poor People's Campaign is continuing in the legacy of Martin Luther King in that way.
And can I ask, what inspired each of you to join this campaign originally?
The campaign was relaunched in 2018 when it was about to be like 50 years of the original campaign, 1968.
Wow.
And the co-chairs, Reverend Dr. William Barber and Reverend Dr. Alistair Harris, they were like visiting churches, states, talking about this project, because they were saying we don't want it to just to have another 50 years anniversary celebration. We want to finish the business, right?
Right.
The work that was left undone. And when I hear that, I was like, oh my God, this is so. I want to be part of that.
It's really interesting how you said that they didn't want to just do a 50-year anniversary. They wanted to continue the work because it wasn't done. Because interestingly enough, our MLK Day theme this year was not done because we still have so much work to do. And I think it's really great that the organization started up again after decades. And it's just a really great cause. And I was just wondering, you guys came to Masters, you led a workshop today at our MLK Day session. So why do you think younger people should get involved in this organization?
I think that this generation is just more willing to consider the fact that we can end poverty. A lot of people think that you can't, but they're like, this younger generation is getting engaged in this struggle to end systemic poverty, and I think we need more kids involved. We need them to open their minds to this possibility. We need them to grow up and change the systems, that we all have been just like complicit in, but like we can transform them if we get involved and build power together. So.
And my final question for you guys is, there were so many workshops today, and so for everybody who didn't get a chance to come to your workshop, can you give us like a little snippet about what you talked about, what you covered, and what went on behind those doors?
Arts and culture work is really important. It plays a really important role in movement work and in like all social movement work, and we do a lot of that work with the Poor People's Campaign. We'll make murals, screen prints, banners, and today we we started to create a banner that hopefully the students can finish with the slogan, "Everybody's got a right to live." Yeah. And that is a slogan that was used in the original Poor People's Campaign in 1968, and it's one that we use today. And there's also a song that goes along with it that we sing in a lot of our spaces. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to love. Everybody's got a right to hope. Everybody's got a right to dream. A lot of people think that there are some people who don't deserve those basic needs. They don't deserve to have their basic needs met because somehow they're in poverty, because that it's caused by a moral failing on their part or a mistake or something. But with the Poor People's Campaign, and Martin Luther King himself knew that poverty is not caused by a moral failing on the part of an individual. It's caused by systemic injustice. So the slogan, "Everybody's got a right to live," asserts that, and the song too, asserts that no, everybody does have that right. It is a human right for us to have housing, food, shelter, health care, a living wage. If people are working, they should be able to live. And just as human beings, we deserve to live, right? So, yeah, we talked a little bit about that slogan and the meaning of it and how it connects Martin Luther King's work with the work that we're all doing today in the movement.
Yeah, so we sing, we talk, we saw PowerPoint, and we saw a video of our rally, so they get to see tons of people doing rallies, doing civil disobedience, and one of the videos was when I was arrested in Washington last year in August, and they get to see that, and then they did the artwork, the art bill. So, come to our workshop next year.
Students weren't the only ones who participated in planning the day for the community. Both faculty and staff worked very hard behind the scenes to bring this event to life. Take a look.
The Master's faculty, both within the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and beyond, played a huge role in making this year's Martin Luther King Jr. Remembrance Day particularly special. This year, Masters' programming featured a keynote speaker who serves as the Associate Professor of African American Studies at Princeton University, Dr. Ruha Benjamin, who spoke to the school on the issue of race in relation to technology. Dr. Benjamin talked about current issues plaguing our world, learning from our past and looking forward, as well as expanding on the day's message.
Not done. We're not done. This work is not done.
Afterwards, students enjoyed some donuts and hot chocolate in the cafe provided by the school before they gathered for reflection and discussion in their advisory groups and watched a film titled Race to Be Human. The afternoon featured a special lunch from Brock, as well as specific workshops developed over time with the help of faculty leaders and outside organizations that Masters brought in. Dr. Rollins Davis, head of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion program at Masters, explains the importance of MLK Day to him.
What does Martin Luther King as a figure mean to you?
Oh boy, that's a big question. He means everything to me, in no small part because I have a direct family connection to Dr. King. My father knew Dr. King, not well, but knew him well enough to be invited to his house on several occasions, and so I grew up hearing stories about Dr. King. So this day is incredibly important to me. We really don't know as much as we think we know about Dr. King, his work, the legacy. I think a lot of it has been lost over the years, and MLK Day has been relegated to just a day off. And in my view, it should not be a day off. And this is not my phrase, somebody uttered this years ago, but instead of it being a day off, it should be a day on. And I take that to heart, and I really want the Masters community to engage with the life and legacy of Dr. King. And my hope is that this day becomes really important to students at Masters because they need to learn something, they recognize they need to learn something, and they willingly embrace the opportunity.
Davis also shouted out several faculty members who aided him throughout the day.
Ms. Barrell is helping to coordinate some of the performance aspects of the day that'll happen towards the end with the performance by the dance group Muse. Mr. Ebersol created the program, which was absolutely beautiful this year. And obviously Mr. Douglas had a huge hand in coordinating everything in terms of both the programs for the day, to the menu of what's being served in the dining hall. So there was quite a bit of faculty involvement.
The dining hall's special menu was no small feat this year. Douglas worked with the team at Brock to create a special menu of culturally important foods, as well as putting educational signs throughout the dining hall. Student workshop leaders appreciated the guidance they received from master's faculty in designing their programs. Beyond the assistance they provided to students in designing their workshops, faculty helped create their own and partnered with outside organizations. Upper school Spanish teacher Roberto Mercedes partnered with the Poor People's Campaign to bring attention to the work they've been accomplishing and strive to do. All in all, planning and leading this year's MLK Day took a village to accomplish, but ended up being a moment to remember. Xavier Ralston, TBN, The Master's School.
Finally tonight, student groups Muse and Dob 16 both closed off the celebration with spectacular a cappella and dance performances. Here's the story.
The inclusion of performing arts is a fundamental component to celebrating MLK Day at Masters, and this year was no exception. Student performing group Muse and advanced a cappella choir Dob 16 closed this year's MLK Day celebrations off with the dance and musical performances in the Claudia Bocher Theater. Dob 16 began the performances with Hosier's Nina Cried Power, a song about the spirit and legacy of protest. While the choir had performed this song before, they felt as though it should be heard again during the MLK Day celebration. Senior Morgan Young, one of the soloists of this performance, spoke to us about this choice.
So when we were first presented with this song, we were asked to think about the meaning, and we were asked to kind of discuss the song as a group, just in general, just so we knew the meaning behind it while we were singing it, because oftentimes when you know the story behind it, it brings more emotion to the song, obviously, and that's really important. And then when we were deciding whether or not to perform it again for MLK Day, we were also asked to write what it means to us, which was part of our presentation when we presented it before we sang at MLK Day. And we thought that by giving people context behind the song, people would be more connected to it, since it is such a social justice song. It has such a social justice meaning behind it, mentioning all these influential people who were behind civil rights movements, and it's so important.
Muse performed 4 student choreographed dances this year, featuring choreography from juniors Zara Suvanto, Aji Engam, Jenny Shu, and senior Angelica Lopez Tucker. Through singing powerful protest songs and producing inspirational choreography, students partake in a creative way to raise the social consciousness within the Masters community and beyond. With their art, these students began to break barriers and start important conversations. Carol K. Ross, TBN, The Masters School.
Thank you for watching this special episode of Tower Broadcast News. Subscribe to Tower Broadcast News' YouTube channel and follow Masters Tower on Twitter and Instagram. I've been your host, Matthias Jalen. Thank you and good night.